Have you ever met a child who couldn't speak, and your first thought, maybe without even realizing it, was, I wonder if they understand me? What if I told you that the way we answer that question, yes or no, has the power to completely shape that child's future? In my years of working with autistic children, non-speakers, and those with complex motor challenges, I've seen one thing over and over. When we presume competence, we open up so many possibilities. And when we don't, we limit them, and they may never get an opportunity to show what they really know. In this video, we're going to talk about what presuming competence really means and the concept of the least dangerous assumption and how it should guide every decision that we make. We're going to talk about why traditional testing often underestimates autistic students, especially non-speakers and unreliable speakers. We're going to talk about how to apply presuming competence not just to the mind, but also to the body. Because remember, in this channel, we talk about whole body apraxia and that disconnect between the brain and the body. And then lastly, practical steps you can start using today to shift your mindset and the way that you interact with those with complex motor challenges, including autism. Hi, if you're new here, I'm Dr. Dana Johnson. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've spent over a decade working with families of autistic individuals, many who are non-speaking or have significant motor challenges and are often believed to be intellectually delayed. If a child can't speak or can't show what they know in the right way through writing, pointing, or speaking, it must mean that they don't understand. This belief is everywhere, in our schools, with therapists, and even with parents, because that's what you've been told. For years, you may have been told, depending on the age of your child, that your child is functioning at an 18-month-old level or a 3-year-old level. But that's not based on fact. It's based on assumptions. Neurotypical students are never asked to prove their competence before being taught. Think about it. When you went into school, your teachers presumed competence. They didn't presume knowledge. Presuming knowledge is you know everything. They just presumed that you wanted to learn and you could learn. But non-speaking students are often required to prove that they can learn at a certain level before they're given access to that level of education. And if they can't, they get placed in classrooms far below their age level, where they're not challenged and they're denied the chance to show what's really possible. Now, the inability to show knowledge doesn't equal the inability to learn. Now, let me say that one more time so that it sinks in. The inability to show knowledge doesn't equal the inability to learn. Research tells us that many autistic individuals have motor planning challenges, with some more significant than others. And that means that the brain knows what it wants to do, but the body doesn't follow through. Now, Dr. Elizabeth Torres describes this as an inefficient sensory motor feedback loop. And when movement isn't reliable, any test that depends on movement, which is essentially everything, that requires speaking, writing, or pointing, it's not a fair measure of their intelligence or what they actually know. And this is why traditional IQ in standardized testing often gives us completely misleading results. Now, I want to talk about the least dangerous assumption. Anne Donnellan put it best in 1984. In the absence of conclusive data, educational decisions should be based on assumptions which, if incorrect, will have the least dangerous effect. Now, if we presume competence and we're wrong, the danger is minimal. So we can reteach, we can adapt, or we can support in a different way. Really, truly, the worst possible thing would be that we're over-educating these students. Now, if we presume incompetence and we're wrong, the damage can be permanent. Lost opportunities, lowered expectations, and emotional harm. Now, I want to define a few things before we move on. Non-speakers, I'm talking talking a lot about non-speakers or being non-verbal, so not being able to speak at all. Non-speakers often have intact language, meaning that they can think and they can understand, kind of like what you're doing right now listening to this video. But they can't reliably get those thoughts out through their speech, and that's because speech is the motor part of communication. Now, until they have a reliable method of communication, like being able to spell or type or use AAC, we simply don't know what they actually know. Now, I'm also talking about unreliable speakers. These are individuals who do have speech, so they can speak, but their speech isn't always what they intend to say. They might have repeated loops or automatic phrases that don't reflect their true thoughts. And this is tricky because we tend to put so much value on speech, and then we take that speech as something that it is truly what they want to say, but then when we're asking them something about whether or not they understand, and then they don't say anything, then we conclude that they don't understand or they didn't learn. And we have to be careful not to judge competence based only on these verbal outputs. And of course, that can be extremely frustrating, but it's something that we have to keep in mind. Presuming competence in the body. Now, I'm talking a lot about whole body apraxia, and it's really important to also think about presuming competence in the individual's ability to move, right? We talk about presuming competence just about the understanding and about the mind, but it's not. It's also about believing in the body's potential. Whole body apraxia can make starting and stopping movement incredibly difficult for some. If a child doesn't move when asked, it doesn't mean that they're ignoring or they don't understand you. It may mean that their body just isn't cooperating. And this is where motor coaching comes in. And if you haven't checked out the video, I did a whole video on motor coaching where I taught you how to give clear, actionable cues to help the body complete the movement so that they can build new motor pathways over time and become more independent. Now, if you're feeling overwhelmed by this shift in thinking, I get it. Remember that this is a process. This is a lot, especially if you have a child who is older and all these years you have believed one thing, and now I'm asking you to consider something else. But here's a few things to start with that mind shift. How can you do that? Number one, check your beliefs. Ask yourself, are these beliefs based on facts or what's always been told? What have the professionals always told me? Now, this is something that I want to ask you. What have you actually thought? Like, what's your gut? Because so often I've had families come in and say, I've always known that they understand. And they'll give me examples of what they have seen their child do. So always remember to go with your gut. You're the parent, you're the caregiver, and you know your child the best. Number two, advocate for age-appropriate academics. I'm going to link the Least Dangerous Assumption article by Ann Donnellan in the description. So take that to your teacher, take that to your principal, talk to them about presuming competence. And just because your child may not be able to demonstrate what they know right now, doesn't mean that they shouldn't be taught age-appropriate academics. Don't let the lack of speech or motor control be a reason for lowered expectations. Thirdly, support reliable communication, whether it's through AAC device, spelling, or typing, whatever is the most reliable way for them to communicate, give the individual a voice that they can count on. Next, probably one of the most important things, speak with respect. Use age-appropriate language, even if the person looks younger in their ability. Think about an individual that you know in your life that's the same age as your child. How do you speak to that individual? That is where I always tell parents to start. Think about that. And then that can guide you in terms of how to speak to your child. And lastly, be creative. Ask yourself, how can I make this work instead of why can't they do this? Right? Encourage your teachers to do the same thing, because remember, this isn't just about being kind or nice. It's actually about ensuring that every person has the chance to direct their own future. Now, if this video resonated with you, I encourage you to spend time with individuals who are non-speaking or unreliably speaking with reliable communication, because you can ask them about their experiences. You can learn from them. They're the individuals who I learned the most from. If you're a parent, share this with your child's teachers. If you're professionals, talk with your teammates about it or take this to your next team meeting. Let's start shifting mindsets together. If you want to know more about autism, motor planning, and building intentional movement, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the notifications so that you don't miss the next video. Because when we can presume competence, we don't just change one life, we actually can change the whole system. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next video.